Congratulations! You just got your first direct drive wheelbase. You unbox it, you set it up, and you fire up your favorite sim racing title. You decide to let go of the wheel, and this happens. The wheel is an absolute maniac! Okay, we're gonna let that go. It can be quite terrifying and alarming if you're not used to it, especially on a wheelbase with high Newton meters. But luckily for you, there are a way to fix oscillations, and today we're gonna go through why they happen and how you can get rid of them. I'm Dat Sim Dude. Let's go. So if you're new to sim racing and this is your first time with a direct drive wheelbase, I think it's important to go through all the settings within the software and some settings within the game so that you can have an understanding of what it is we're changing. My goal is for you to walk away at the end of this video and have an understanding of what you need to do when oscillations occur while still being able to maintain the settings that feel good to you. I will be using my Moza R12 and we will be using the pit house as examples on what to do. Every wheelbase is a little bit different, every software is a little bit different, so it might be a little bit different for you and how it feels and what you need to do, but I think generally the principles kind of apply even if you're using a different software. I think that you'll still be able to kind of grasp and get an understanding of what you have to do to get rid of crazy oscillations so your wheelbase stops trying to kill you. If you're an experienced sim racer and you're more or less just looking for different settings to try out to eliminate oscillations, you might want to skip ahead of the video and go straight to the setting sections. Otherwise, I think you should stick around so that you can get an understanding of what each setting does. Let's get into it. So why do wheel oscillations happen? Every title handles force feedback differently. So you'll notice in this clip here, this is the original Assetto Corsa, and I let go of the wheel, you can see that it starts to oscillate quite a bit. But then if I take the same settings and I go into something like Assetto Corsa Evo, you'll notice that the wheel doesn't oscillate as much, sometimes it doesn't even oscillate at all. And that right there shows that each title handles force feedback differently. And so you need to adjust your settings accordingly within your wheelbase software to deal with those oscillations. Now you can also deal with those oscillations with in-game settings. It's a combination of the in-game and your wheelbase's software. So we'll start off by using Assetto Corsa and we'll start messing with the settings in Moza Pit House to get rid of oscillations. I think Assetto Corsa is a good game to start with because it doesn't have too much in-game settings for force feedback, and so it's more reliant on what your software is doing to get rid of oscillations. And then after that, we'll hop into some other games to kind of show that some of the in-game settings do matter and help out with oscillations and overall feel of the game. Generally speaking, you can always get rid of oscillations through your wheelbase software. We'll go through each setting and how it affects oscillations while simultaneously explaining how sometimes the settings you think are helping with oscillations might not be the best ones to change, and how different games are affected by different settings. Let's go. I do run a general setting for Assetto Corsa. Take a look here. So yeah, 35% natural damping, 100% natural friction, 300% natural inertia. I run 100% spinning speed, all the force feedback, all the output torque, and I have my own setup equalizer here for bumps and stuff. The reason why I'm bringing this up is these settings are pretty good for oscillations on most cars, but not for all. I don't remember what kind of car this is. I know it's an Alpine, but anyways, it's a very high performance car, and I do like the way the force feedback feels in it. I do like it to be pretty visceral and feel a lot of bumps and stuff. This does create oscillations though, so like if you see when I let go there, they do happen. They're not so bad at low speeds though. They get worse the faster you go, but in a car like this, you don't really ever want to let go of the wheel. You should be holding onto it unless you're crashing. And when it comes to a game like AC, Assetto Corsa, most of the cars you'll be driving are from modders, meaning the modding community has created that car. And so it does depend on the car and how they've set up the force feedback. So this car, it will happen, but if I get into some other modded car like a BMW or a Toyota AE86, Nissan Skyline, GTR, R34, things like that, you won't really get oscillations. Even some race cars, it won't happen. So I do have a general setting. I do once in a while mess with it if the car is a little bit too insane. But yeah, I just wanted to point that out, that like, sometimes it's all right to deal with oscillations because, you know, if you like the way it feels and you don't find yourself letting go of the wheel a lot, it's not a big deal. But if you're dead set on getting rid of them completely, it's just important to to keep in mind that you might end up having to retrain your brain how to drive that car, because you might end up getting a feeling out of it that you might not like, or you're just not used to it, right? And me personally, I wouldn't want to change the way this car feels, even if it does oscillate when I let go, just because I like the way it feels. So that's important to keep in mind. This car is just bonkers. Alright, so what I want to quickly do is go through each setting and explain what it does and how it affects other settings with your wheelbase. And again, we're using the Moza Pithouse. Some of the terminology used for what these settings are might be a little bit different in your software, but I think for the most part they're all the same. So we have the game force feedback intensity, and that is how much force feedback is allowed to be output to the wheel coming from the game. So you could turn this down to stop oscillations. Sometimes it helps, sometimes it actually makes it worse. Again, with the Assetto Corsa, it depends on the car. I generally run this at 100% and turn it down in game, especially because in a game like Assetto Corsa, you can just turn it down per car. Maximum output torque limit, basically, it doesn't limit the force feedback, but it limits how hard the wheel can torque. I would turn this down if you have a small child or somebody who's not quite used to sim racing with high Newton meters. There's that, you could turn that down as well. I've never really seen this help oscillations, to be completely honest with you. Maybe it might. So this one can help with oscillations. This is your maximum wheel speed. So basically this is how fast the wheel can spin when you let it go. Turning this down can help with oscillations, but if you're driving something like a road car or you're drifting, this will probably make it worse, a worse experience for you. Like whenever I'm driving a road car and it slips out, I tend to let the wheel slip through my hands, and if the wheel speed is not high enough, it doesn't spin and catch up to where the tires are rotating in the game, where the steering is rotating in the game. Now that being said, this R12, I've run it at 10% on some cars and it still spins incredibly fast. So this is very dependent on the wheelbase you have. I found with the R5, the more you turn this down, you definitely noticed it, but on this wheelbase, you don't notice it as much. But nevertheless, this does help with oscillations, but I usually only turn this down a little bit, like maybe to 60 to 70%. These ones I can actually physically show you. So this one is force feedback interpolation. I gotta be honest with you, I have never noticed a difference changing this. Maybe somebody in the comments can explain to me what this does, but let's go through each effect here below. We'll explain what it does. So I'm just gonna turn everything off so you guys can see what they do and then how we can apply them all together. So let's start with natural damping. So if you look at the wheel here, it can very easily spin freely now. Like it actually bounces off the lock, right? This is because there's no damper, there's no friction, no natural inertia, so the wheelbase is not giving any resistance at all. So what damping does is it adds like a bit of stickiness, I would say. It's like it makes the wheel feel a little bit heavier, but it also like affects how it spins freely, right? So if I spin the wheel and I turn this up, you notice how it instantly stopped the wheel? Now the wheel has a sense of weight to it. The harder I try and turn it, the more it resists me. So if I turn it slowly, I feel a little bit of heaviness, but it's still pretty light feeling. But when I try and turn it fast, it starts to fight me. So this does help with oscillations, but this also dampens out other signals. It also sometimes makes it harder to feel the force feedback with the car. So you generally wouldn't turn this up to 100%. And especially if you're doing something like drifting, this is going to actually affect your maximum wheel speed. So even if you crank it up to 200, but then you crank the damper up, it'll still spin pretty well, but you might find it's not spinning fast enough, right? And then there's natural friction. This is a constant force applied to the wheel, so this does add a bit of weight to it, but as you can see, it still allows it to spin a bit. So this does help with oscillations. I honestly generally always run this at 100 just because it adds a little bit more feel, and I find that this doesn't affect the spinning speed or the feel of the force feedback as much, but it does add a constant force to it. So as you can see, it spins, but it's always kind of giving it a little bit of damper, so that's a really nice thing. I run this pretty high. Sometimes I turn it down a little bit. Natural inertia. So this one is a strange one, but it helps the most with oscillations, I find. It does affect spinning speed, like the rotation speed, but it's a little bit differently. So if I crank this up, you can see when I grab the wheel, it spins, but the wheel now feels like it's 10 times heavier. It's almost like spinning a truck wheel or something. So this basically simulates the weight of the steering wheel. So when you spin the wheel, you can let it spin, but it's very, very heavy feeling now. It does affect the spinning speed, but it gives it more of a wind up. It'll slowly spin up and then spin in your hands because it's simulating weight. So at 500%, it's extremely heavy, right? So this really helps with oscillations because it adds a sense of weight to the steering wheel. Now, it doesn't always get rid of them. Like sometimes when you turn it up to like 300, the wheel has weight to it and it'll still oscillate, but it'll just oscillate slower. It won't be so fast, it'll be left, right? And it's funny because I can actually simulate oscillations without playing a game by turning up this wheel spring strength. What this does is, you can see right here, when I let go of the wheel, it brings it back to center. It tries to anyways. It doesn't bring it to completely center, but the more you wind up away from center, it'll try and bring it back. Now, if we don't run any natural damping, friction, or inertia, you actually can make it oscillate. So see, it's going back and forth. It's getting worse. It's hitting lock now. But because the wheel's got no natural inertia, no damping, no friction, it's pretty easy to stop. I'm not nervous to grab this when it's spinning. So this is a big, large oscillation. Now, generally in games, sometimes it almost has more of a vibrating effect and it goes, it's a little bit more intense. But basically what we could do here is we can show, like, as soon as we apply some damper, it calms down, has a lot more weight to it. Especially if we add a lot of damper. Now, no matter how much we try, it won't oscillate. It will just slowly turn back. Now, this is the funny thing about natural inertia here, like we were talking about. This will still rock back and forth, but it's just much slower because the wheel has weight. So if we just need to add a little, we could even add some friction. See, the friction helped right away. We could try adding damper. Obviously, this is like high settings here. You kind of want to find a balance of each one. Like I said, I do run 100% natural friction, but you never know. On some cars, you might actually end up running it lower and being okay. It's Assetto Corsa is very weird with that, but you do have some settings over here. This is direct input effect tuning. Basically, what happens is, if the game has a controllable setting that's being input from the game, a light, these will turn green, these little dots here. For Assetto Corsa, game damping does come up, so you can add a little bit of extra damping. You can also add some damping within the content manager. I don't ever really do that, to be honest. I just find that I like to do it within Pithouse, and it's fine. There is also speed dependent damping. To be honest, this doesn't seem to work. It used to work. I don't know why it's not working. Maybe it's something I'm doing wrong, but what this does is you set a speed of when you want a damper to be applied and then how much damper it gets applied after you cross this speed. And to be honest, again, I don't know if it's because the R12 is maybe bugged, or I just can't seem to get this to work. So I would imagine that this setting here would help with oscillations, but it just doesn't seem to work for me. So I'll have to maybe mess around with that more in the future. I never really used it anyways, to be honest. I don't like when the wheel gets heavier as I speed up, simply because a lot of the cars are already programmed in such a way, most of the modded cars anyways, are set up so that the wheel starts to feel heavier with force feedback the more that you drive, or the faster you drive. There's also the FFB equalizer. This is kind of like for road feel. So like when you hit a bump, basically the higher you set these, the more aggressive they'll come. This is my own personal setup, how I like the way it feels. Strangely enough, for some games, especially like Car X and everything, I do find that messing with these settings sometimes gets rid of oscillations. Sometimes in some games you might want to turn it up, and sometimes you might want to turn it to 0. So it all depends, but for most part, this is my custom setup that I like. And again, sometimes some cars will oscillate a little bit. I just kind of deal with it because I like the way it feels. You can also mess with the base FFB curve, and basically this is a linear curve, right? So force feedback is applied evenly throughout, but basically if I were to do something like this, when the wheel is centered, the force feedback does not get applied as heavily until you start to turn more to the left or more to the right. So you could slightly mess with this, bring down some signals. This does help with oscillations. In fact, I have used this before in some cars when I'm racing competitively. I will actually, and I find that just coming down here, bringing this down and turning this down just the slightest amount, sometimes is that little bit extra kind of cherry on top to get rid of those oscillations. So it's a combination of all these settings. And what we'll do is we'll get into like a street car right now, something like a BMW or something like that, where we can create oscillations where it's a little bit easier to tune out. And then we'll get into something like we just saw in the previous clip in the Alpine, where it takes so much messing around to get rid of it. And that's why I kind of like to explain that, like, even though you can get rid of them, sometimes it's not ideal. Some cars are just going to be like that, but regardless, you can always get rid of them. It just sometimes is much more of a pain in the ass than it is with other cars. So for a good example, I've turned everything down down. I've turned absolutely everything off in the equalizer. I have no kind of filters, no damping, no self-centering, but I do have the force feedback all the way up, and I need to be extremely careful because this could hurt me doing this because it's going to get quite violent. Now I'm going to keep the wheel speed at 100% simply because on my wheelbase, 200%, it actually is legitimately kind of dangerous to try and grab, and it just becomes quite violent. So I don't think we need to go to 200%. I think the more damper and things we apply here, we could probably bring that up for drifting and stuff. But anyways, I said we would use a BMW, but actually I'm going to choose the Porsche 911 992 RSR Street because it's actually really good. It doesn't take a lot of settings to get rid of oscillations. I also just really like this car, so we're going to use that as an example. So let's go ahead and load into the game here. So obviously out of the box, what I've shown in the pit house, these are not settings you're going to be running. This is just crazy, but this is like the worst case scenario. Because let's say you are a person that doesn't want to run as much damper and stuff and less settings. This kind of shows that it does depend on the car. So this car, it's going to appear as if it's a wacky, crazy, want to kill your hands car, but it's not. It's just my settings. So I have the force feedback at 100% in game right now. It's actually extremely light feeling at low speeds. And to be quite honest, you can feel the weight of the car insanely well through this, okay? But as soon as you let go, Jesus Christ. It takes 2 seconds. Oh, God, okay. Very slow. We're not even out of first gear and it starts to happen. That's worst case scenario. So remember when I said that the road feel actually affects oscillations? I couldn't for the life of me explain why, but it does. So we have it at 0 basically. If I turn this up to 10, you're going to see oscillations start to disappear right away. So now we're getting a bunch of the bump sensations and everything, okay? Look at that. Look at that. It has basically gotten rid of it. Now it will still happen a little bit. You can see that, see if we hit a curb or something, it starts to freak out and panic. So we don't want that. This does feel better, but it's also still very twitchy, right? If I let it go, it's a little bit insane. It's a little insane. So this obviously helps a lot, right? But if we go into the straightaway, get some real serious speed here. See, it is starting to happen. Now this car is pretty good at self-correcting. But yeah, so the road feel does help, okay? That road feel feels nice, but it just feels, the wheel still feels like it's really twitchy and it's really fighting me a lot, and we're still getting some oscillations. So what we can do is simply, let's turn up some natural inertia. So let's go to 250%. This gives the wheel a sense of weight, right? We'll turn this friction, let's go to about 50% here, so that gives a little bit more of a constant force, and then a bit of damping so that when I let go of the wheel, it does stop itself from spinning a little bit here. And maybe we'll add a little bit of wheel spring strength to simulate some power steering effects. So like when we turn it, it tries to turn back slightly. I think that's kind of a realistic feel. I bet you that alone right there will probably get rid of the oscillations in this car. Oh, and another thing here, there's no reason to be running this at 100% force feedback. Now that we have damper natural inertia, the wheel is going to have a more sense of weight in the software. So I can turn this down to in-game to about, let's do about 70%. For me, that's always felt more comfortable, right? Much better feeling now. So let's go back to the straightaway here and see if we still get oscillations at high speeds. A little bit of oversteer there. Look at that. Now this game is not like, it's not like a real car. Assetto Corsa Evo does much better. It'll still sway a little bit, but we're at extremely high speeds. The cars simply just won't oscillate now. And we still have plenty of feedback and plenty of feel. So now this is where I like to come in. My custom settings are usually something, I'm just gonna quickly kind of do something like this. This is kind of the settings I have. I like to run 300%, sometimes 350, but I'm gonna do 300 with a little bit less damper, but all natural friction, no wheel speed. See if that feels better. So now that I got rid of those high frequency vibrations, there's no graininess feeling in the wheel. And the wheel is a little bit more sluggish, it has a little bit more weight, but it will spin back, so I can let it slip through my hands. If I want more spinning speed out of it, I can turn max rotation up and everything. But as you can see, right, things like road feel, damper and stuff, it's all kind of these things you kind of need to mess with. And also simply turning down the force feedback, is the more damper and more natural friction you introduce on the software, the more it's gonna just feel heavy without the force feedback being applied. So this actually gives you a little bit more headroom to have more bumps and curbs feeling it. Now, again, the more damper you run, the more dampened the signal becomes, so you don't feel it as much. So this is why natural inertia, natural friction, road feel, those kind of things kind of help you out. Now, if you're on a wheelbase that has, you know, a decent amount of Newton meters, this one has 12. I got a lot more headroom to play with, so unfortunately, it's something like an R5 and everything, you will kind of be sacrificing one thing to fix another when you don't have that headroom. But I'm sure anybody and everyone can find a nice balanced point to where it feels pretty good. But yeah, this feels fantastic. I got plenty of weight, and actually I still feel very, very well what the car is doing. This is an example where the car is pretty easy to dial in. Now let's go to a different car, back to that Alpine, where you'll see it's very, very difficult. And for me personally, I mitigate them a little bit, but I don't completely get rid of them, but it's gonna be quite a mission to get rid of these oscillations. So let's head over to that car. I love this car. Let's crash it. Ah! That was uneventful. Ah! Okay, let's move on. Okay, so now we're gonna load up the Alpine A424. That's what the car is called. We're not gonna do what we did before. We're not gonna take all these settings down because it honestly, you can make fun of me in the comments, but it's dangerous. I already know the car will oscillate with these settings, and I've mitigated them for the most part, but I haven't completely gotten rid of them. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna go through and mess with the settings and try and get rid of them completely. And will I run this setting after we do it? Probably not, because again, I like the way it feels, but let's see if we can get rid of it, because some cars, it does feel damn near impossible. Again, some cars are just programmed weird, or just the way they're set up, they're just gonna oscillate. So anyways, let's hop in now to the game and see if we can get rid of them. But yeah, like I said, I don't want to use the example of running no settings because it just is way too insane. I mean, look at that. It already kind of did its own thing. It's actually, I don't know why it's doing that. It's just complete. Jesus! I almost lost my thumb. You gotta be careful with these things, man. They can hurt you. I have no idea why it did that, to be completely honest with you. I have no clue. Anyways, we got my settings here. I'll show you what's what. Okay, so we have to get up to quite high speeds for it to happen, but it's not happening. See, now it's starting to happen the faster we go. So it's around usually 5th or 6th gear that we start to get those oscillations, right? But yeah, so what can we do to get rid of them? Well, let's try playing with each setting. So actually, first thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to simply crank up the damper. Let's crank up the damper and see if that gets rid of them. So it's around 5th or 6th gear. A little bit, it's helped a little bit. It wants to do it, but it is saving itself a little bit more. So it's happening a little bit, but it does seem to be much better now. And that's because, again, I have a lot of bump sensations, a lot of road feel coming through. So now let's actually lower the in-game force feedback from 100% to about 70, because again, that's where I like to run it. Let's run the straightaway again with that settings. The wheel's becoming much lighter feeling, but that damper really coming through, giving it a sense of stickiness. Like I like to, I don't know why I call it stickiness, viscosity. Look at that. It's a very bumpy track, so that damper alone has helped a significant amount. So we know, okay, we can run more damper. Now again, this doesn't feel too bad, but I want the wheel to be a little bit more lively. But this is not too bad, honestly. Okay, so we know with this car, the damper fixed it, right? Let's go ahead and go back to the original settings and see if we could fix it with other things here. I know I could probably just leave it at that, be like, that's how you fix it, you guys, but I want to show you that like some settings help with certain cars, some settings don't help with certain cars, right? So we know with this car that basically adding a shitload of damper to that helps, but I don't really like that much damper. What about more a natural inertia? What if we crank that up to like 500%? Would that help with oscillations? Because then if it does, what that tells me is I could probably just increase a little bit of both to help get rid of those oscillations, you know? So now this wheel just feels really, really weighty, and I really don't like it, to be honest with you. This feels way too heavy for a car like this, and I feel like, yeah, so I suspected the oscillations would actually not be as twitchy, they would be slower, but they're heavier now. So this setting does not help with this car. You might find that actually turning this setting down with more damper kind of helps. Yeah, I just don't like that. Let's try going down to 200%. We'll go back down to 250, but we'll go about 75% damper. You know what, actually maybe 300%, so we can add a little bit of both, but we're not absolutely cranking the damper. And we'll see how that feels. All right, so we're still getting them, so let's go back in here. Let's try cranking this back up to 350 here and turning the damper up a little bit, see if that helps. And if not, then we kind of know that perhaps it's just damper that fixes this car. Maybe less natural inertia fixes oscillations with this car. Ass. Whoa. They still kind of happen. It's not as bad. So let's turn the natural inertia down to 150% with 80% damper. See if that increases it. So this is kind of what it takes, you guys. This is what you got to do. You know, if you are dead set on making different presets for different cars, this is kind of what you have to just experiment with and play with to get rid of them. And look at that. That's actually helped a lot. Now, of course, the bumps are making it jump around quite a bit and oscillate. Actually feels pretty good, I'm not gonna lie to you. It's a little bit light feeling for my liking. I would rather a little bit more natural inertia, but I'm actually getting quite a bit of information, so that feels pretty good. But let's say, okay, so we've got that where we want. That's oscillating a little bit still. Just we want a little bit. So what we'll do is we'll turn down all of the road feel a little bit here, just a little bit. And what I'll do is I'll add in here, because as we can see, this light is lit up, so it has in-game damping. We'll add a little bit of game damping. We'll add about 20%. And what I'll also do is I'll put a little bit of wheel spring strength, about 25%, so that will try and pull the wheel center. I do think this will probably help. So we got a little bit more damper. We turned down some of the road feels, so that the bumps coming through as much. Look at that. It's getting better for sure. A little bit. Okay, yep, there it is again. Now I'm wondering here, just to kind of get rid of that little bit of oscillation that's happening still, I'm gonna turn down the wheel speed to about 30%, and I'm gonna add just a 200 natural inertia, a little bit more game damping. I'm actually gonna take down spring strength a bit, and then with this base FFB curve, I'm just gonna slightly pull it down so that when it's closer to center, it's not as active. So, and I'll actually bring this down to here, and let's see if that helps a little bit here without getting rid of the feel too much. So a little bit more dead feeling in the center now, as to be expected from what we did. But I think we might have got there now. Look at that. It wobbles a little bit, but it does correct. Now, the force feedback is a little bit weak, but I am still getting an understanding of the car. So this is kind of what I mean by this give and take with some settings. We've got less rotation speed, therefore the wheel's not wanting to fight me as much. But as you can see, I can still drive this car with these settings, right? If I want to run higher force feedback, I'll probably have to run a lot more damper and maybe just turn down the road feel. There's so many different ways to set it up, but as you can see, it took a lot more work with this car, but we did get it done. It actually, to my surprise, Still feeling pretty good. I might actually save it and work upon this because this does feel pretty good. It's a little light. I'm curious here if I turn up the force feedback now. Ooh, that's quite heavy feeling. And look at that. We're not really getting oscillations, so that's pretty damn good. We're getting a lot of bumps here, so they're happening. But it is kind of correcting itself here, so. And this feels quite heavy. When we slow down, it gets light, but the faster we go, the heavier it gets. So I think it's now time to show another game here because I have found that I've tried to get rid of oscillations in games like Forza Horizon 5, which is the game we'll go to next. And it was just really hard to do within the pit house. But when I did mess with the in-game settings along with pit house, I was able to make it feel pretty good. Unfortunately, a game like that takes a little bit more tinkering because of that, but we'll hop in. Oh, got a little bit there, but yeah, we'll hop in and we'll mess around. But again, they happen for a second with this setting, but it is able to correct itself, right? So wobble is always a part of racing, you guys. Sometimes it's just like something you can't completely get rid of, but you can set it up so that it does help. So yeah, but anyways, let's go into Forza Horizon 5 and mess with some game settings. Forza Horizon 5. And I'm gonna load up my pit house settings here. So here's what we got. Spinning speed at 100%, 300% natural inertia. Again, I always like to run 100% natural friction and 55% damper. I also chose to run this at 8. Now I don't remember if I was able to get rid of oscillations or not, but those are the kind of the settings I like the wheel to feel before the game starts to do the input. Generally, that's the settings I like in the software. So I'm gonna try and set up the game around those settings within the pit house. Optimizing for PC, this shit takes forever. Oh my god. I feel like I have to do this every time I open up this game. Every time. Oh my god, man. How long is this gonna take? Doopity-doo. We need to optimize the game for you. 2 years later. 60%. 65. Yes, faster. Yeah. Come on. And you're gonna just stick at 99%, right? Oh. And now the game has to actually load. Oh man. This reminds me of Grand Theft Auto 5 on the Xbox 360. Those days. When I was a wee lad. I was gonna flip out. It looked like it was gonna freeze. You can do it! Come on! Holy shit, are we in the game? Yes, we are. Okay. Thank God. All right, so here we are in Forza Horizon 5. And as you can see, got a little bit of oscillations going. It's not too bad. But let's go ahead and go into some settings. So I put some settings here that I've started to make it oscillate a little bit. Now it's just getting worse, right? But the actual weight of the wheel and everything coming through pit house feels pretty good. So what I would do is I'll go into the in-game settings and mess with it. I'll come in here, I will turn the damper scale, I'll probably do around like 1.5. This mechanical trail scale, it kind of makes it feel like, you know, if the car's like understeering or oversteering. This also helps with drifting, but I'll turn that down a little bit to be less responsive. Minimum force feedback, like a lower value, is more of a linear response. This will make it feel heavier. So I'll come to about here. And then force feedback load sensitivity. I don't know, let's turn that down to 1.2. This is something that like you just gotta kind of mess with and make it feel the way you want it to feel. I don't like that road feel scale. I'm gonna go down to 3 or 4. Off-road, I'll do the same, about 2, because I hate how much it vibrates. Vibration scale I already have down, and then I'm actually gonna turn the force feedback down a little bit to like 0.7 and just see how that feels. It might feel a little bit too light, but let's see if that helps with the oscillations here. That's got still definitely helped for sure. It's a little light feeling still. Wowzer! I think I could definitely do something with the FFB equalizer here, but I think this is a drag strip right over here. It's got a good road to, oh, look at the fireworks. Ow, wall. All right, let's get some speed. See if it helps. We still got them a little bit. Yeah, they're still there. Back to advanced controls here. I might actually turn this up a little bit. Wheel damper scale, let's just crank it. Minimum force. I want it to feel a little bit heavier. And I want smoother aligning torque. I want it to align smoother. And less road fuel again. And let's quickly open up the pit house here. Let's turn down this road fuel a little bit. Turn up the damper a little bit, and let's go to 350% natural inertia, just to kind of ease in the settings with the ones we have set here. Ah, that actually feels pretty damn good. Whoa! Whoa! See, now this I don't like, because now when the car let go, look how slow it's spinning in my hand. So although it does feel better for oscillations, it's a little bit too slow. So what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and crank up the spinning speed in pit house here to 200 for this game. This might be the first time I actually tried cranking it to 200 in a game and actually using it, and see if that helps. We have so much damper applied now and so much of the in-game damper settings that this might actually help bring it back to where it needs to snap to without oscillating. So far it does feel that way. No oscillations, and it's actually quite responsive. It is spinning back to where it needs to be, and I'm still getting a sense of what the car is doing. Definitely need to turn the road feel back up a little bit off-road. Like, I literally feel, well, it actually is coming through a little bit. So there is no one clear answer to getting rid of oscillations. It depends on the game, in-game settings. Unfortunately and fortunately, you know, every game you play, you have to sit around and mess with it. But it's also nice to have that customization so that you can get a feel that's tailored to you. And I'm not gonna go too much more into this because I still haven't, you know, this feels better. I still want to mess with it more, and it would take a lot longer to do that with this game. Forza's not the friendliest game to set up force feedback with when it comes to Moza, but nevertheless, this kind of shows that the in-game settings matter a lot, because I don't want to add too much natural inertia or damper in the pit house like we've done and lose that, you know, that responsiveness. So sometimes it really does help to mess around with the settings in game, you know, especially like games like WRC and Dirt Rally. It really helps out. So yeah, guys, basically just don't be afraid to mess with settings, crank them up, turn them down, just make sure you keep your fingers clear when you are messing with them. And if you have any questions on what settings do, or, you know, you want to share your knowledge, please feel free to do in the comments. And if you liked what you saw, please subscribe, because it really helps me out. Thank you. And there you have it. How to get rid of wheel oscillations. Hopefully this video helped you and you walked away understanding your software and settings a little bit better so that you can hop on the track and throw down without getting your fingers broken. I'm DatSimDude. If you liked what you saw, please like and subscribe. I'm always trying to improve on my videos. I want to keep uploading new ones. Feel free to comment on the things you thought I missed, the things I can improve on. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out.